Fellow Sierra Leoneans, my name is Albert David. Today, Sunday, 15th June 2025, I come before you with humility and a deep sense of responsibility to share and reflect with you an objective message of national importance. Over the past 7 years, Sierra Leone has witnessed a series of deeply troubling developments that raise serious concerns about democratic governance and civil liberties under the leadership of President Julius Maada Bio. These events paint a bleak picture of political suppression, intimidation, and systemic violation hallmarks of a government drifting away from democratic principles. Opposition figures, civil societies, activists, and dissenting voices have faced relentless harassment, persecutions, arrest, disappearances, and incarceration. Prominent figures such as former President Dr. Ernest Bai Koroma, Dr. Samura Kamara, the APC Secretary General Lansana Doumbouya, Sidi Yaya Tunis, and particularly Femi Claudius Cole, the leader of Unity Party, was arrested without warrant in Freetown. It was on July 3rd, 2022. She was held at the CID for several weeks before being released without charge, alongside Dr. Dennis Bright, the chairman of National Grand Coalition. Former leader of the Alliance Democratic Party, ADP, Mohamed Kamarimba Mansare, Paulo Conte, and so on, all subjected to the same fate. Thomas Babadi Kamara and Maddie Williams, civil and human rights advocates, and many more have all become targets of political and judicial harassment, sending a chilling message to those who try to question authority. The storming of the Pandemba prison aimed at eliminating opposition figures resulted in the cold-blooded executions of several dozens of innocent and defenseless inmates. An event that underscores the unchecked brutality that has unfolded. Citizens exercising their constitutional right to peaceful protest have met dreadful consequences. On June 25, 2023, following the announcement of election results, security forces, mainly police and the military personnel, opened fire on the opposition party headquarters, leading to the death of several, including a boy popularly known as White Boy, and a woman who was a nurse and a party volunteer. She was severely wounded and later succumbed to her injuries. On August 10, 2022, Sierra Leoneans took to the streets in what was a peaceful demonstration against the worsening economic hardship paralyzing the nation. Frustrations over rising cost of living, fuel scarcity, and unemployment had reached a breaking point, prompting citizens to demand urgent government intervention. What was meant to be an expression of democratic dissent quickly turned into a scene of bloodbath, as security forces, as usual, the police and the military responded with deadly force, killing dozens, injuring hundreds, arrested hundreds of them as well, and hundreds more incarcerated. The voices of those demanding economic relief were drowned out by gunfire, leaving behind grief, unanswered questions, and a lingering sense of disappointment and injustice. On May 6, 2020, a peaceful protest in the fishing village of Tombo turned deadly when fishermen whose livelihood depends on daily fishing activities peacefully marched to express their frustration over COVID restrictions. However, tensions escalated when security forces again, as usual, the police and the military personnel, intervened, opened deadly fire, brutally killing dozens, injured many more, and hundreds more arrests was made and incarcerated. On July 18, 2020, a peaceful protest in McKinney turned deadly when security forces opened fire and mercilessly executed many, including a 15-year-old schoolboy. Citizens exercising their right to peaceful assembly should never be met with state-sponsored brutality. Mile 91 and many other towns and villages have similarly witnessed lethal responses to protest, underscoring a systemic dismantling of civic freedoms. The government's stance on civil expression has been unmistakably oppressive. Press freedom and freedom of assembly, once a pillar of democratic society, has been systematically eroded. Journalists, activists, and other independent voices have faced intimidation, harassment, unlawful incarceration, and even expulsion. A Dutch journalist, Sophia's arrest and detention, leading to the confiscation of her journalistic properties, and her expulsion from the country, serve as a stark reminder of the suffocation of press or free press in Sierra Leone. Figures like Marcel Samba Cissé, Thomas Dixon, Howard Hunt, Zainab Sharif, Elegy, and many others have all endured similar threats, illustrating a broader crackdown on independent voices. Meanwhile, the nation struggled with an economic crisis of unprecedented proportions. Unemployment has soared to all-time highs. Essential services such as electricity, water, and medical care remain scarce. Government and civil servant workers continue to go unpaid. Despite the dreadful conditions faced by ordinary citizens, the ruling elite, including the president, his family, cabinet members, and key supporters, continue to indulge in an extravagant lifestyle, buying expensive mansions, villas, building five-star hotels, buying and using luxurious cars, using yachts, expensive watches, and so on, widening the gap between the privileged and the struggling majority. The destruction of civic space has reached an alarming levels. The binary stance, either you are with us or you are an enemy of the state, has become the defining mantra of governance, obliterating constructive political discourse and silencing opposition and other independent voices. The fundamental rights of Sierra Leoneans to speak, to protest, to hold power to account has been systematically dismantled. This is not democracy. This is not civilization. The path Sierra Leone is trekking is one overwhelmed with suppression and fear. A deviation from the democratic principles upon which a just society must be built. The world watches and history will judge. In a landmark effort to foster national unity, inclusivity, and combating hate speech, Sierra Leone's two major political parties signed a tripartite agreement in June 2024. This document was intended to serve as a guiding principle for responsible political discourse, ensuring that leaders set an example in promoting cohesion and mutual respect. However, the actions of certain senior government officials, including Mike Berewa, Director of Communications at the Office of the President, and the now Chief Minister David Moinina Senge, a signatory to the tripartite agreement, have raised serious concerns. Their divisive statement and inflammatory social media posts directly contradict the very principles they pledge to uphold. Such conduct is not only unethical and unprofessional, but also undermines the integrity of the agreement itself. Leadership demands accountability, and when those entrusted with guiding the nation fail to adhere to their own commitment, it erodes public trust and weakens the foundation of national unity. The people of Sierra Leone deserve a leader or leaders who honor their word and demonstrate the political maturity necessary to foster a stable and inclusive society. It is imperative that all signatories to this agreement reaffirm their dedication to its principles and take meaningful steps to ensure that their actions reflect the values they publicly endorsed. In an era wherein words wield immense influence, the responsibility of leaders and individuals in positions of power to communicate with wisdom, integrity, and foresight has never been more critical. Public statements, posts, and actions have the potential to either unify a nation or deepen divisions that could threaten peace and stability. Political discourse should serve as a tool for constructive engagement, enlightenment, and positive transformation. However, when we have conversations are fueled by inflammatory and rhetoric, when conversations are fueled by inflammatory rhetorics, unverified claims, or divisive sentiment, they become catalysts for unrest, distrust, and societal fragmentation. Leaders must recognize that their words hold weight, capable of shaping perspectives, influencing public sentiment, and determining the cause of a national progress. We urge leaders, policymakers, and influential voices to embrace the principle of responsible communication. Thoughtful, measured, and fact-driven dialogue fosters a culture of mutual respect, strengthens democratic institutions, and nurtures a society where ideas can be debated without fear or hostility. Such rhetoric raises critical questions about the impact of political discourse on governance and national unity. Does labeling the APC as unprogressive contribute to constructive political debate, or does it risk alienating opposition voices and their supporters? These are questions we should be asking ourselves. How does this language affect public trust in the government's ability to foster inclusive leadership? Could this rhetoric escalate tensions and hinder efforts toward national reconciliation, particularly in a country still consolidating post-conflict peace? What measures should be taken to ensure that political leaders engage in discourse that prioritize policies over personal attacks? We should be asking these questions, and we need answers. How do citizens perceive these statements? Do they see them as justified critics or as a sign of political desperation? Additionally, broader concerns have also emerged regarding governance culture. A prominent lawyer and activist Michael Basita has accused the government of fostering a climate of sycophant and a yes man, which she argues stifles accountability and genuine decision making. This could also have serious implications for democratic governance and transparency. The use of derogatory language by political figures, including First Lady Madam Fatima Bio, reference to ministers as dogs, have also sparked controversy. While some view such remarks as a blunt critique of inefficiency, others see them as a sign of internal discord within the administration. Ultimately, the cumulative effect of this statement is a heightened sense of political instability. When leaders resort to inflammatory rhetoric, It risks shifting focus away from the pressing national issues such as economic development, healthcare, and of course education toward political infighting, shifting focus. Should political leaders be held to a high standard in their public statements? We need answers for these questions. Leadership is not only about governance, it is about setting an example. A nation flourishes when its leaders uphold truth, promote unity, and inspire collective progress. Reckless statements, misleading narratives, and posts that designed to provoke instability have no place in a forward-moving society. It is also imperative that those in positions of influence demonstrate commitment to ethical leadership, using their platforms to educate, to guide, and foster hope rather than inciting divisions. As citizens, we must also exercise wisdom in the information we consume, the information we share, and the information we endorse. Upholding national cohesion requires a collective effort, a shared responsibility to ensure that dialogue remains a constructive, inclusive, and geared towards solutions rather than conflict. History will remember those who choose to use their voices to build, to uplift, and to protect the dignity of their people. Let us all, leaders and citizens alike, commit to the highest standards of communication, ensuring that our words and actions reflect the values of peace, unity, and national responsibility. Sierra Leone's growing reputation as a transnational narcotic hub is also a cause for grave concern, casting a shadow over the country's stability and governance. The increasing presence of internationally known drug networks within the borders of Sierra Leone threatens not only national security, but also the integrity of its institutions, eroding public trust and undermining the rule of law. Sierra Leone serving today as a safe haven for figures linked to global drug trafficking, including Just Lidakers, also known as Omar Sharif, and reportedly the son-in-law to the president, raise critical questions about accountability and enforcement. If such operations, the consequences will be far-reaching, exacerbating crime rates, fueling corruption, and jeopardizing the country's standing in the international community. The dangers of narcotic infiltration extend beyond politics. They infiltrate economic structures. They destabilize social order and threatens generations to come. Countries that have failed to curb such illicit trade have witnessed profound societal damage, spiking addiction rates, weakened governance, and diminished global credibility. Sierra Leone cannot afford to follow this dangerous trajectory. Addressing this crisis requires urgent intervention. Transparency and decisive action. Authorities must uphold the law impartially, ensuring that individuals linked to drug trafficking, regardless of their affiliations, are held accountable. Furthermore, international collaboration is imperative to dismantle criminal networks operating across borders, reinforcing security measures and protecting Sierra Leone's future from devastating consequences of unchecked narcotic trade. Our nation stands at a crossroads. Will it reinforce its commitment to justice and governance, or will it allow illicit enterprises to dictate its fate? We need answers for these questions. The response to this crisis will not only define Sierra Leone's present, but will shape its legacy for years to come. Sierra Leone is now facing an alarming surge in fire incidents, leaving hundreds of Sierra Leoneans homeless, and further deepening the hardship endured by its citizens. This unprecedented crisis, unseen since the end of the Civil War, raises urgent questions about disaster preparedness, emergency response, and the government's capacity to protect its people. The scale of destruction has exacerbated economic instability, forcing families into catastrophic conditions with little to no immediate relief. Compounding the nation's distress is the unfolding geopolitical crisis at the border town of Yenga. Guinean forces have taken control of the area, conducting military drills. This is an undeniable encroachment on Sierra Leonean sovereignty. The presence of foreign troops on national soil not only constitutes a breach of international law, but also presents a direct threat to local stability. The displaced communities now living under the shadow of uncertainty, fear, and economic hardship as their livelihoods are disrupted by military occupations. Despite this gravity of the situation, Sierra Leonean government's response have been evidently subdued, offering little to no reassurance. The affected populations, the border citizenry, the silence or passive inaction of national leadership raise pressing concerns about the protection of sovereignty and the welfare of its people. At a time when decisive intervention is needed, the absence of strong diplomatic and security measures risk endorsing external interference and deepening public frustration. As tensions escalate, urgent action is required to safeguard national borders and uphold international laws, and of course, protect the rights and welfare of the local communities caught in this crisis. The world watches with anticipation. Will Sierra Leone assert its sovereignty and protect its people, or will it stand by as instability takes hold? We have all these questions for our leaders, and we need answers. Since President Julius Maada Bio assumed office in 2018, Sierra Leone has witnessed a troubling shift in its democratic landscape. Protests from independent voices, civil society, and opposition groups have increasingly been classified as terrorist-related offenses, some leading to severe consequences, including executions, harassments, incarcerations, intimidations, and so on. This alarming trend raised concerns about the erosion of democratic values in a nation that was once committed to building its governance on principles of freedom and justice. Beyond political repression, Sierra Leone is grappling with extreme economic hardship. Unemployment has soared, and divisions along regional and tribal lines, and of course political lines, continue to deepen, exacerbating social instability. Amid all these crises, First Lady Fatima Bio, who holds no official governmental capacity nor legal authority in labor disputes, has controversially intervened in private sector affairs. She led a protest against Kwaido Holding Limited, one of the country's few major job providers. Her involvement has resulted in the dismissal of over 900 workers, a move that threatens Sierra Leone's already fragile employment sector and deter foreign investment in the country. The political interference in corporate operations raises serious concerns about governance, economic stability, and the future of private sector and private enterprises in Sierra Leone. As the nation faces mounting challenges, the need for transparent leadership, economic reforms, and the protection of a democratic right has never been more urgent. We need them now. We need them now. Let me also don't forget to mention Sierra Leone's agricultural failure, a disturbing tale of missed opportunities, and of course, unanswered questions. By now, Sierra Leone should have cemented its place as the breadbasket of Africa, with over 1.2 billion invested into the feed salon strategy, alongside $88 million allocated to President Bio for large-scale rice farming or rice production between 2019 and 2021. And an additional $105 million received in November 2024 to support large-scale livestock farming. The nation was positioned for agricultural independence. Yet, despite these staggering figures, Sierra Leone continued to struggle with food insecurity, unable to sustain even 10% of its citizens without heavy reliance on imported rice and poultry products. This failure raises serious concerns. Where has the money gone? Why, after years of significant financial injections into the agricultural sector, does the country remain tethered to external markets for its basic food supplies? We need answers. These are urgent questions that demand answers from those responsible. Instead of delivering accountability, we now see government officials embarking on political campaigns, attempting to exonerate themselves from what is clearly an unacceptable situation. This is not just a disappointment, it is appalling to the highest manner. The promise of a self-sustaining, agriculturally prosperous Sierra Leone has turned into an empty narrative. The very investment meant to transform food production has yielded little but inflated statistics and broken assurances. A nation blessed with fertile land, abundant natural resources, and a dedicated farmers should not be trapped in dependency. The failure of this strategy speaks volumes, not only of mismanagement and inefficiency, but of a deeper problem that demands urgent investigation and real solutions. Sierra Leoneans deserve clarity, honesty, and above all, a leadership that delivers on its promises rather than excuses. As frustration grows, the time for political rhetoric has long passed. What the people demand now is results. Tangible, visible progress in agriculture that directly impact their lives. Anything less is a betrayal of the people, is a betrayal of the hope and investment poured into this vision. Instead of delivering, we now see excuses, and excuses. In another development, the Clerk of Parliament in Sierra Leone is expected to maintain neutrality and avoid partisan politics, according to the Parliamentary Act of 2023. And of course, the Sierra Leone 1991 Constitution, Section 4, which states the Clerk of Parliament is a key administrative figure responsible for ensuring the smooth functioning of parliamentary procedures. The role is expected to be impartial, serving all members of Parliament, regardless of their political affiliations. But recent unfolding events suggest that the clerk involvement in partisan politics has sparked controversy, indicating that the current Clerk of Parliament, Parantara, is pursuing an executive position within the ruling Sierra Leone People's Party, SRPP. This has led to opposition figures, particularly the All People's Congress, demanding his resignation, arguing that his political ambition conflicts with the neutrality required for his office. The opposition has also cited constitutional provisions, including Section 15A2, of the Political Parties Regulation Commission, PPRC. And of course, Act of Section 262B of the 1991 Constitution as well, banning public officers from holding political or executive position. Therefore, based on constitutional parliamentary regulations, the Clerk of Parliament should remain neutral and not engage in partisan politics. Holding the position of clerk in Parliament while simultaneously applying for a political party's Secretary General role would be a complete violation of these principles. So as Sierra Leoneans, we must remain steadfast in our demand for accountability and transparency from those entrusted with the leadership of our nation. Democracy is not a privilege conferred upon the few. It is the collective right and responsibility of every citizen. For we to remain silent in the face of governance that lacks integrity is to relinquish our power, to abandon the very foundation upon which our freedom stands. We must never disengage from holding our leaders to the highest standards of honesty and service. Transparency is not an option. It is a duty that every public official owes to the people. Policies must be explained, actions must be justified, and resources must be accounted for. The voices of the people should never be dismissed. It must be heard, it must be respected, and acted upon. Similarly, we must not refrain from demanding adherence to the dignity of democratic principles. Elections must be fair, institutions must be independent, and governance must be free from oppression or manipulation. Democracy thrives when leaders govern with integrity, when laws protect the rights of all, and when citizens are empowered to speak without fear. That is democratic governance. The strength of Sierra Leone lies not only in its rich history and resilient people, but also in its collective pursuit of justice. A country prospers when its leadership prioritizes truth over deception, when they prioritize progress over self-service or self-interest, and when they prioritize services over power. If we truly seek a better future, then we must remain vigilant, engaged, and relentless in our quest for justice and democratic integrity. A brighter Sierra Leone is possible, but only if we, its people, refuse to remain passive in shaping its destiny. Let our voices rise, let our actions inspire, and let our unwavering demand for accountability serve as a beacon for generations to come. Thank you all. God bless you. God bless Sierra Leone.